gifts this year. This is Groovy the Glow Man. Groovy the Glow Man, and he's a squishy. He's got little snowflakes inside that are actually supposed to be glow in the dark, but I've not seen them glow in the dark yet. I don't know if I'm just not charging them enough in like the sunlight or what, but he's pretty cute. He's fun, and I definitely enjoy squishing him. I'll try like putting him next to a window and see if those little snowflakes actually glow in the dark. That would be cool. Alright, so we're going to start with tips for your car, your vehicle, whatever you drive. One of the things that used to annoy me before we were able to fit both of our cars in the garage, in our other house, our truck did not fit in the garage. It was simply too big, so we could not park the truck in the garage. And so in the winter, of course, you had to get up super early if you needed to drive the truck because you have to defrost it, and half the time the doors themselves were like frozen shut. Like you could not open the door. Like to get in, to turn it on, to defrost it. It was a whole thing. But something I learned that works super well, if you have WD-40, it's like a silicone spray. There's a bunch of different brands that make sprays like this, but the most common one, at least that I've had, that my dad always had around, was WD-40, and it actually stands for Water Displacer 40, Formula 40. So knowing WD stands for Water Displacer, if you spray this around like the edge of your door seals, both sides where the door closes and where the door opens, and then also you can spray it into the keyhole. That helps a lot, and spray like the lock mechanism right where it actually latches in the door. If you spray all that with WD-40, it prevents the door from freezing shut. And also it's just super good for, it's a lubricant, so it's good for the key. Like it's good for everything. It's not gonna hurt anything on your car. It'll actually probably make it open and close like more smoothly, and your key operate more smoothly. A lot of people now, of course, have just key fobs. It's not like a key that you put in, you unlock it with like a little, plastic thing with buttons on it, a fob. But a lot of cars do still have like the keyhole in case of emergencies. Like most fobs have a little part where the key can come out of it. But yeah, if you spray all that, if you need to park your vehicle outside for whatever reason, that will help it not be frozen solid. So you can at least get in and turn your car on and start defrosting your car. We are fortunate enough now, here in Kentucky, our garage is quite a bit bigger than the one we had in the Seattle area, so we are able to fit both of our vehicles in there. It's a tight squeeze, but we can do it, and that is so nice, because it's so nice not having your car be, frozen solid when you need to leave and go somewhere. Okay, so another thing, I actually brought a can of this up to show you. This stuff is super nice. There's lots of brands. Again, you don't have to get this brand. Different companies make this stuff, but Pre-Stone Ice Fighter Spray, this de-icer. This one actually comes with like a scraper, a windshield scraper as well, which is nice. So this one says it's for windshield, windows, and wipers. And it's super nice. It melts ice really quickly. So we always like to keep a few cans of this around. Sometimes, there are times when you just do not have time to wait for your car to defrost. And if you have a can of this, you can speed the process up quite a bit. I used to keep this, like 5 or 6 cans of this in my as a flight attendant, because the very last thing I wanted to do after getting home from a 5-day trip of being gone is spend 40 minutes in the parking lot trying to defrost my car. So I would always use this, like, when I got back from a trip, I would spray everything, and it would quickly melt. It says, quick ice removal melts ice and frost fast, easily clears glass. So yeah, I would highly recommend. This stuff is like at my Walmart, this is less than $4. It's like $3.69 or something like that. These are flammable, so do not keep them by anything with a flame or anything that gets hot. That would be the only thing that I could find dangerous about this stuff, is putting it by something hot. That would not be a smart move. Just kind of like you shouldn't leave anything like hairspray by something hot. Same idea. Of course, it is a chemical, so don't eat it or put it on your body or inhale it. Use it in a well-ventilated area outside. Those things should be obvious, but obviously kids would be a good example of people that might not know that, so keep it away from kids, obviously. Okay. So the next thing is, this is whether or not you park your car outside, inside, outside, doesn't matter. In the wintertime, you need to make sure you change out your window washer fluid for one that has antifreeze in it, so that it doesn't freeze and crack the compartment where that washer fluid is stored. If you have the kind that isn't made for, going down to low temperatures, it can freeze in there and break that container where that washer fluid gets stored, and then obviously that's expensive and a pain to get repaired, and it's so not necessary, because that antifreeze window washer fluid is literally like $2 and super easy to change out. And if you have like a little bit left in your compartment, that's fine. Just mix it in with the one with the antifreeze in it, and it should be fine. Okay, definitely in winter driving, it's important to know where your emergency flashers are and how to turn them on. You should always know that, even in not winter, but this would be a good time to figure that out if you don't know. Because, if you need to drive slowly, whatever the reason that is, that you need to be driving slowly, it's a good idea to turn your flashers on so other people know that you're purposefully driving slowly. You might need your flashers if you get in an accident, if you slide off the road, any of those things. You just need to know where they are. Let's see. So my dad taught me, in winter especially, you should always keep your tank at least half full. So when it gets to half, fill it back up. There's several reasons for this. One is, especially if you have an older vehicle, condensation can start to form in your gas tank, and that will make your car not run well. But if your tank is full, the condensation can't form. Another reason is because if you do get into an accident or into a situation where you have to pull off the road, you cannot continue on for whatever reason, it's good to have as much gas in your tank as possible so that you can at least periodically turn the car on and warm the interior up, and you can be able to charge your cell phone in case it's, you don't know how long it's going to take emergency services to get to you, because especially when there's a winter storm, a lot of people are going to be using emergency services and AAA and roadside services. It's going to take a long time, a lot longer than normal, to get help if you need it. So it's good to have gas in your tank. Even if you can't drive your car, you can use it to have heat, and you can use it to charge, your cell phones to stay in contact. Let's see, what else? Emergency prep for winter all the time, really, in our vehicles, but especially in winter, we always make sure we have, like, blankets and, food, a little bit of, non-perishable food, like beef sticks and some granola bars and, crackers, water, and then we always have a roadside kit, so like with jumper cables and, flares and, I don't know, it's got a ton of stuff in there. Honestly, I don't even know everything that's in ours. We got it at Costco. It was like $30. We always keep it in the car for emergencies. This is my little snow globe of Chicago. I got this the very first time. I flew there as a flight attendant on a layover. It's actually getting a little dingy now, which makes me sad. Like, the water inside of the globe is a little off, but it's super fun and snowy, so I thought I would show you. And also, Chicago's on a bit of a tilt. I'm not sure what's up with that. It wasn't like that when I bought it. Also in the car, it's good to have flashlights and like a battery power bank. In case your car is totally dead, you can still charge your cell phone and have, contact to try and get help. Let's see, so when you're driving in the snow or ice, you do not want to slam on your brakes. That's the worst thing you could do if you need to stop quickly, because you're going to slide. So you really want to try and slow down as slowly as possible by pumping your brakes. And you can also, if there's snow on the side of the road, you can kind of drive out there a bit, put one of your tires in it to help you slow down a bit. The tires will grip the snow and get a bit of traction, and it will help you slow down. If you hit your brakes, especially really hard, you're going to slide and you have the potential of rolling your vehicle. I was in a really bad car accident once. A friend was driving from college and we were trying to go to crew practice. I was on the men's rowing team in college at Gonzaga, and we had crew practice all through the year. Crew is a sport where you don't have seasons. It's you do crew all year. And so in the winter we had like almost an hour drive out to where we practiced. It was on a lake, and of course it was super early in the morning, around 3:30. We had practice at 4 a.m. and it was very icy and snowy. My friend was from Arizona. He'd never driven in the snow, and there was an accident that happened in front of us. A car flipped and rolled several times, and then of course he saw the accident, tried to stop, slammed on the brakes very quickly, and we fortunately did not roll, but we bounced back and forth off the guardrails on both sides of the freeway several times, and did a bunch of turns before we came to a stop. And it was like the scariest, 90 seconds of my life. It was horrible. This is one of the reasons you do not want to slam on the brakes. It will not make you stop quickly in the snow or ice. So obviously trying to slow down with as little use of the brakes as possible is best in snow and ice. And it's another reason why you shouldn't be driving super fast, because if you're driving super fast, it takes you longer to slow down, and you need to keep your distance, a much bigger distance than normal, from the cars in front of you. If there's people behind you getting angry about you going slow, frankly, they can buzz off and go around you because people driving like maniacs are the ones that are going to have, problems. You can also add weight in the back of your vehicle, especially if you have rear-wheel drive. You'll need to add weight in the back. Rear-wheel drive means your back tires are the ones gripping for traction, so if you have more weight in the back, it'll be easier for them to grip and get traction. Four-wheel drive means all four tires are doing that, which is much better in snow and ice. Obviously, it's a good idea to have some chains if you're going to get heavy snow, but chains are for snow, not ice. Putting chains on when there's ice is like strapping some ice skates to your car, so you don't want to do that. But if it's going to be deep snow, especially like on a mountain pass or something, that's when you would use chains. And honestly, they're a freaking pain to put on, like absolutely horrible. So here's to hoping you do not have to do that. And two more things I want to talk about with driving. Potholes. Obviously, if the road's covered, you can't see the potholes. So, just try not to hit one. It's hard, obviously, but if you remember where some are, or if you know this road most likely has some, kind of try to drive not in like the grooves, like off the grooves a bit, so that you're not hitting the potholes. And actually, freezing cold temperatures and then it warming up is one of the things that causes potholes. It disrupts the integrity of the ground, so there's likely to be more potholes after there's been a deep freeze and then it warms up. Just something to be aware of and look out for after the storm has passed. And then also, when you're driving in the snow, it's hard to tell where the edge of the road is, especially on like country roads like out where I live. Last time we had a big snowstorm, there were like 7 or 8 cars in ditches on the side of the road because they literally fell off the road, like trying to move over to let someone by. So be very mindful of where the edge of the road is, and honestly, it might be better to back up to a spot where there's a larger section of road or into a driveway, onto another street. Just use your best judgment, but try not to get too close to the edge and fall off, because it's really hard to tell where the edge is if snow is covering everything. That's one of my biggest fears driving on our roads where we live, is falling off the edge when there's snow, because you can't see where it is. And some of the roads are so narrow, like you can barely get 2 cars by, That becomes a lot harder when you can't see where the edge of the road is. Okay, so now we're moving on to tips for like your house or your home, wherever you live, even your apartment. Some of these tips can be useful. You won't have control over, some of the things I'm going to talk about if you're renting, but some of them will still be helpful. I know some people's landlords are, controlling like even the heat, like in some of those older buildings. In New York, there's like a central boiler that has to be manually turned on by like the landlord to make the heat go up through the radiators. So obviously I know some people won't have control over like what heat they have their house at, or some of these things, but some other things might be useful to you. So the main thing, number 1, is knowing where your emergency water shutoff valve is and how to operate it. If you do get a pipe that freezes and bursts, it's going to send water all through that area of your home where it's burst, and you want to get that water turned off as quickly as possible to minimize the damage and repair that's going to have to happen. So the first thing is running down to wherever that is. Mine's in the basement, and getting that thing turned off. Mine's just a little lever, and I believe on is up in line with the pipe, and off is like to the side, out like this, and not in line with the pipe. It might be opposite of that though, but whichever way it's not is where you want to, turn it. It should be on when you go down to look at it. But this will be something really good to know where it is and how to operate it. It might even impress your parents, honestly, if you still live with your parents. You might ask them where the emergency water shutoff is, and they might be impressed that you want to know and that you're thinking of things like that. Okay, also, if you have ceiling fans in your home, there's a little switch on most of them that you can flip, and it will reverse the direction that the blades spin. And in the winter, you want to reverse them so that they are circulating the warm air in your home. In the summer, you want to have it obviously creating cool air, but in the winter, if you reverse the blades, it will circulate the warm air in your house and keep your house actually warmer, which is handy. This is my Starbucks tumbler that I think looks the most like a snowy winter day. I've just got water in here. I love this one. I think it looks like a big snowflake, big iridescent snowflake, and it has like a snowflake pattern on the top right there. I also have some little snowflakes. You guys have seen these before with my Christmas decor, but I thought they were perfect for a snowy winter cold weather tip video. Okay, the next thing is if you have sinks or any kind of plumbing that's on an exterior wall, a wall that faces like the outside, if it gets really cold, like, below, let's say 20 degrees, it can be a good idea to open those cabinet doors just on the ones that are on external walls. It helps warm air get to that plumbing and keep those pipes from freezing. You can also, if you're really worried about it, like it's freaking really cold, -20, you could have a little drip. Just turn your faucet on, like a tiny drip, just like doo, 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 and the water running in that line will keep it from freezing as well. I learned a hard lesson when I was a flight attendant. One of my very first days working as a flight attendant, I was stationed in Anchorage, so most of my flights were out into the Arctic, and we landed in Barrow. It was -20 something, and in my manual, my flight attendant manual, it tells you always to turn off all of the coffee pots, the ovens, anything. Nothing should be operating during like takeoff or landing. Okay, so that's obviously, standard operating procedures, but sometimes in like the Arctic, if you turn those coffee pot lines off, those lines will freeze when you're on the ground. And so you turn them off when you land, and immediately upon landing, when you're parked at the gate, you would turn them back on to keep them warm and keep them from freezing. But I didn't know any of this. This was not knowledge I had acquired yet as a brand new flight attendant. So I did turn them off like the manual says, and I was actually really proud of myself for remembering to do that. And then, of course, we go to make coffee, and the lines are completely frozen, and it took hours and hours and hours, basically all the way back them to heat back up enough to work. And so for that whole flight we couldn't have any coffee, and the passengers were really angry, and my coworkers were angry, and it was very stressful. But that's my experience with freezing plumbing lines. So let's see what else. Okay, outside of your house, if you have hose attachments where you can attach a hose, the water comes out of your house, it's a really good idea to cover those with insulation. They make these little caps. They're insulated that go over them. They're super easy to use and they're very cheap. I think regularly they're like $1, but last year I actually bought a bunch after, like in springtime, after winter was over, for like 35 cents. They were really discounted. So we have a bunch of those now, and we just put them over any of the water spigots you have outside that'll keep those from freezing. And your hose, you should definitely, before putting it away, obviously empty all the water out of it so that doesn't freeze. And then it's a good idea, if possible, if you have control over your thermostat, to keep your house at least 60. If it's very, very cold outside, this will help keep your pipes from freezing and not overtask your heater, your furnace. If your furnace is fighting really hard to, keep it warm enough, it'll be a lot more taxing on the furnace, but around 60 is, a good point for not letting your pipes freeze and not overtaxing your furnace. Of course, you can keep it a little warmer if you want to, but 60 would be like minimum. And then weather stripping on your doors and windows. If you look at your door, like your front door, it should have little thin strips of mini insulation, I like to call it. They're little strips of insulation. It's called weather stripping. It keeps the cold and wetness from coming in through the cracks around your door. This stuff can just get old over time and brittle from being hot and cold and outdoor in the weather. It's actually really cheap and it's super easy to replace. So if you notice you have gaps in the weather stripping, or it's crumbling, or it's really brittle and old, it's a good idea. You can just pull that off. It usually comes off super easy, and then putting the new stuff in there is super easy too. There's YouTube videos you can watch. You might not even need to. It's pretty self-explanatory. And it's very cheap to buy it. I've even seen it at my Dollar Tree a few times. So it's a good way to help keep your house warmer. You can also insulate your windows. If you want to keep your house warmer, you can put hang blankets over your windows. That will help keep the heat in. Especially if you have single pane windows, or if your windows possibly are very old and are kind of lost their integrity. They're letting hot air out and cold air in. Adding blankets over the windows can be really helpful. I have a blanket over the window in the filming room, not for that reason, but to keep the light out and to help dampen the sound of the train tracks that are over there. So I always have a blanket over this window. I also have one over the window in our bedroom because I want to keep the light out for sleeping, because we sleep in the daytime right now. This is my other pretty snowflake. Let's see here. Okay, so space heaters. Space heaters are great. Obviously electric ones require that your power isn't out. can be dangerous if you leave them unattended. You shouldn't have them on in rooms that you're not in. Obviously you don't want to put them next to anything that could catch on fire. They should be clear of any, thing that can touch them. And obviously kids should be kept away from them. They can get too hot to be touched, and if they get knocked over, like onto a carpet, they could quickly catch that carpet on fire. So it's always a good idea to be in the room that your space heater is in, and if you leave that room, turn it off till you come back. I'm still recovering a little bit from my my cold that I had, but I'm pretty much back to normal. It's just a little bit in my throat, Okay, so what's next? Okay, so if you have like a freezer, obviously on your fridge, like at the bottom, like we have upstairs, or like a big freezer in your garage or in your basement, there is a trick you can do to know if, your food has been spoiled, because the power's gone out and you haven't been able to obviously keep your freezer running. So the trick is you take like a mason jar, a cup, whatever, doesn't matter. I use a mason jar. And pour water in up to like whatever line you pick. I pick right here usually. And then you freeze that in your freezer, and then you take a coin, doesn't matter, a penny, dime, nickel, quarter if you're fancy, and you put that on top of the frozen ice, and then if your power goes out and everything in there obviously starts defrosting, you will have a way to measure how cold everything has stayed. If the ice, as the ice melts, the coin will go down with the ice, and if the coin gets all the way to the bottom, everything's spoiled. You're gonna have to chuck it out, unfortunately. But at least there's a way to know if it stayed frozen or not. If you, after your power comes back on, if your coin is only right here, things are still probably safe and can be refrozen and kept. But if the coin got all the way to the bottom, most likely everything's spoiled. So that is a trick I learned actually pretty recently. Someone who had been, dealing with effects of the last hurricane had been talking about that useful tip on one of their channels. Okay, so let's see what's next. Keeping your garage door closed is really helpful for keeping heat trapped in there, and keeping that wall, whatever wall your garage is on of your house, that'll keep that wall warmer for your pipes. So if possible, don't leave your garage door sitting open. If you do need to, say your power's out and you need to go into your car maybe for a while to warm up, or to charge your phone, maybe you want to use your vehicle to do that. Another reason why having full gas tanks is a great idea, even if you don't intend to be driving. It's best to back your vehicle out of your garage and turn it on and let it run and sit in there outside. You don't want to create carbon monoxide from the exhaust of your car in your garage. That can cause carbon monoxide poisoning and be fatal, so you'd want to do that out in a very well ventilated area. Same with cooking on like a propane stove, or I don't know what else you might cook on. Any kind of thing you might cook on that's not already ventilated out of your house. You would want to do that in a well ventilated area outside. outside and cook if that's what you need to do. You don't want to burn gas or, I don't know, cooking things inside of your house that can lead to carbon monoxide poisoning. Carbon monoxide poisoning is more common in the winter time because people are using more types of heating sources. So it's something you should definitely watch out for. And in a lot of states, carbon monoxide alarms are actually required. Like Washington State, you have to have them by law. Kentucky, that's not a thing. You don't have to have them. We do have them. You can have ones that are built into your house, like some smoke detectors are built into the house. Or you can have ones that plug into outlets. That's what we have. There's a battery backup and then it plugs into an outlet. They're not very expensive. Ours were like $6. They are kind of not useful if you don't have one close to every room. So like in Washington State, the law is you have to have a carbon monoxide alarm at least 6 feet from every bedroom. So in our Tacoma house, that meant we had to have 3. So in this house, we have one right next to our master bedroom. And then we only have one upstairs. One because we don't typically have people sleeping up here, so we're not as worried about it. If we had kids or family that lived here with us, we would probably get more, but most of the time there's nobody sleeping up here, and it's just us, we just have one right by our bedroom. But in Washington State, by law, it doesn't matter if someone sleeps in the bedroom or not, you have to have one. So those are really good to have. There's some symptoms that you can watch out for to make sure that you know if you are feeling effects of carbon monoxide poisoning. But the thing is, it's kind of hard to know because one of the main effects is confusion and memory problems. So it might just make you really confused and you won't be able to realize that that's what's happening. But some of the other symptoms are, disorientation, headache, confusion, stomach upset, memory problems, feeling like you're intoxicated even though you haven't been drinking or consuming any substances that would make you feel intoxicated, and shortness of breath. So these are things to watch out for. Always just do anything like that in a well-ventilated area to avoid carbon monoxide poisoning. Let's see here. What else? Obviously, the power is more likely to go out in like a snowstorm, especially if there's ice. Especially in areas like Kentucky where a lot of the power lines are still above ground. So the ice will become really heavy on the power lines and bring them down, obviously causing lots of homes to lose power. In a lot of areas like where we used to live in Washington State, all the power lines are underground, so that wasn't as much of a problem. Storms too can bring trees down that bring the power lines down, stuff like that. So it is more common in like a snowstorm situation to lose power. So it's always a good idea to have, batteries on hand. If you have external battery packs for like charging your phone, it's a good idea to have those already charged up and ready to use. Flashlights, of course. Candles. I've got lots of candles. I've got this one here. This is the chai latte. I have a bunch of emergency candles too that burn for 5 hours minimum. I get those at Dollar Tree. Can use tea lights. Any kind of candle is good. Of course, again, same thing. You want to make sure that they're not set in any places that could catch anything on fire. And also, you can use like lamps like this. This is an oil lamp. We use paraffin oil in here. That's like the cleanest burning oil. It still smells not as bad as like kerosene would, but there is still an odor, unfortunately. And it's normal for your glass to go black like this. That's just from the flame and the oil burning off. You can take this off and clean it. But these are handy. Same thing, you would not want this to get knocked over. The oil would go everywhere and be on fire, and it would be really bad. So you want to put this somewhere well ventilated, one, in like a large room with a lot of space. And you also want to make sure it's on a very stable surface. It's not going to tip over, fall over. It's not going to be somewhere your dog or your kid can hit it over on accident. These are pretty safe. I mean, this is how people lighted their homes for decades. Longer than that, even. But, you know, in today's day and age, we're not used to using things like this, so there can be, you know, accidents, mistakes, and it's good to be really careful when using something like this, but they are very handy to have. We got that one several years ago at Walmart. I think it was like $12. And paraffin oil, that's the oil you want. Don't get kerosene. That smells like you've got a diesel truck running inside of your house. It smells terrible. Paraffin is much less of a scent. Still has a scent, but you're not gonna like pass out from it. Like kerosene is very potent and terrible. Terrible smelling. Let's see. I've got just a couple more tips. So one of the main things is if you have you know, prescription medications that you take that are essential, you can't do without them. Before a storm comes in, it's a good idea to try and get those refilled. Have them at your home, available, you know, for you. Same with your pets. Don't forget about your pets. If your pets needs medications or they need their food, special food, I don't know, anything else that your pet might need, don't forget about them as well. And then also, this is a trick I learned in the very minimal survival training we got as flight attendants. We were flying a lot up in Arctic Alaska, and so of course there was a danger if your plane were to, you know, go down for some reason, whatever reason, and you needed to survive for a while till emergency services could get to you in the Arctic tundra. They taught us, you know, a few things for survival, and one of them was if you need to keep warm, say your power's out and it's taking a really long time for them to get the power back on and it's very, very cold outside. This is the trick. So if you have a tent, like a camping tent, you can put that on an elevated surface. You don't want it on the ground. On top of a bed would be a good place for one. You could put that, set up the tent. You can even cover that with more layers of insulation, like blankets or towels that you're not using. And then have all the people in your home sleep inside of the tent. Just your breathing and natural body heat will keep it warmer in there. And the insulation will keep the heat in. And that will keep you a lot warmer. That's one of the things you can do. Hopefully nobody's in that situation, but this did happen a few years ago in Texas. There were some terrible storms, and a lot of the problem had to do with a lot of the power provided to a lot of these neighborhoods was solar or wind, and the solar panels froze, and the windmills were not working either. So a lot of these homes had no way to get power to them, and people were actually freezing. Like, there were deaths, and it was horrible. But one of the things people did to survive was use that tent trick. Put the tent on top of the bed and insulate it, and have everyone in the home sleep in there, stay in there for warmth. So that's like a last resort, worst case scenario type thing. Most areas will be able to get the power back on fairly quickly, but if they can't, it is a good thing, a good trick to know about. So I hope that you guys stay safe and warm, and that the storm passes quickly for you. I hope that you found these winter